Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to SolidCAD team doing this webinar today on working remotely with Civil 3D projects. As speakers, we have David Hill, Matt Kohlberg, and myself from the Civil Infrastructure team. And for the agenda, we're going to talk about working remotely, the current options, why, Autodesk docs, bit on the project setup, PC setup, project workflow based on Autodesk docs, document sharing, and then a brief demo on mainly markups and issues related to in a typical project workflow. If you're attending this webinar, one reminder, we did a exclusive webinar on Autodesk Construction Cloud and some of the workflows based on Civil 3D data shortcuts projects a few months back, and there's a YouTube link available. Also from Autodesk, there are the best practices for Construction Cloud documentations too. Working remotely. So, as we all know, due to the realities of the coronavirus in North America, not only in America as worldwide, AEC industry shifts as much as it is able to a remote working environment. The need to be productive in CAD and Civil 3D becomes really paramount. So let's take a look at some of the options available. Remote desktop or RDP allows your home computer to connect to another computer over an internet connection. This practice has been available for a long time and has generally not changed much over the years. The benefit of this solution is that you end up working on your office computer, which means no new setup or additional software to installation, and everything is familiar. One of the major setbacks is the lag time. As you move the mouse over on your end at your computer, it might take up to a second or more to see the cursor movement on the other end. And the amount of lag depends on the internet connection too, and could be vary from user to user. Second option is a virtual private network or VPN. Allows you to access your office servers from your home computer through a firewall. You can run applications directly on the PC. And most of the time, you're accessing your office networks environment for specific network drives or printers. But when we look at the VPN, it is okay for low graphically intensive applications such as Microsoft Office and email. When it comes to design solutions like Civil 3D, which push and pull a lot of data, far more than what you think sometimes. And a VPN is not really recommended in such an environment. The third option is virtual desktop infrastructure or VDI terminal server. This one requires extra layer of software to be installed and set up on the VDI system. Generally, it's around Citrix or VMware. The implementation can take well over a week of planning sometimes, along with a period of testing to ensure everything is set up correctly. VDI incurs larger upfront costs, and adding more users to the environment requires additional computing resources, so the price will only go up in such situations. The fourth option, Autodesk Construction Cloud. Autodesk ACC platform is made of several different solutions, from document management to model coordination and to field management. When we look at the Autodesk Construction Cloud, the entire document management part is taken care of by Autodesk Docs. So Autodesk Docs provides a cloud-based document management and a common data environment on the ACC platform. The Autodesk Docs replaced BIM 360 Docs and is now available for AEC collection subscribers. Some of the key components: it's a cloud file storage system designed for multi-users. You could create and organize folder structures, assign permissions and user access, file versions, data locking, markups and issues. You have a 2D and 3D browser capable of viewing and comparing the design data or any type of data with versions. And also you will see a desktop connector, which is the vehicle transporting data between the computer and the cloud. You could do workflows, approvals-based workflows, and a nice reporting and analysis tool. So if you look at the Autodesk Docs, it is more CAD-centric compared to all other platforms out there. And it's smart enough to keep the references intact for Civil 3D or a CAD. There are shortcuts. It's aware of what's going on behind the scene and keep track of all those information. And to go over some of the details and setups, Matt is going to take over from now.
All right, so project setup. Essentially, how do you get started? Like Prem said, back last fall, you're going to be able to find it on the SolidCAD website. There's a video that we did that goes into more detail about the information I'm going to show on this slide. So I'll go over this quick. If you want to look into it in more detail, go find that video, and that'll be your info. So a couple things have to happen. Administration requirements. You know, before you can start using Autodesk Docs, it has to be enabled. You go to manage.autodesk.com and you can go enable your docs there. You have to assign docs licenses and Design Collaborate Pro licenses as well. You need to add members, and then you have to create a project. Once that project's created, you then invite members to that project. You don't have to do them in this particular order. You can create folders first, doesn't really matter too much, but folders must be created. You can create a project template with all your folders already defined in it. That's fine. And then you assign folder permissions. Now you may have heard something called roles in Autodesk Construction Cloud. Roles are there for a couple reasons. One reason is to assign different services. See, ACC, you can have a bunch of different services like model coordination and design collaboration. Not all projects require those services, and not all members are required to use those services. So that's one thing that roles help do. Roles also help when you assign permissions as well, but really it's about choosing users and assigning folder permissions. Then you got to get some files in there. You know, maybe you have an existing project that you need to migrate from your regular server, your Z drive, to Autodesk Docs. There are particular workflows that you need to follow to make sure all the files are migrated properly. You can drag and drop in your browser or using ADC. ADC, apologies for the acronym, is Autodesk Desktop Connector. That thing in brackets is beware of unanticipated paths, right? If you've got your entire project in one path, drag and drop, it's probably going to be okay. Autodesk will determine references like DRefs for Civil 3D or XRefs for AutoCAD, and it manages those references. But if you have drawings in one location and references in sort of a whole other location, you're going to get a funky folder that shows up. And there are ways to mitigate that, one of which is right inside Desktop Connector. And it is called, if I can remember, there it is. That's the desktop app. That's not correct. Reference Explorer. When you have Desktop Connector installed, you drop a file in it. It tells you what the status is of any references you have. If you use the Sheet Set Manager, I'm just going to throw this out there. It doesn't really work all that well right now with the Autodesk Construction Cloud and Autodesk Docs. When I say it doesn't work well, that's the classic one, the one we've all been using for many, many years. Autodesk have recently developed something called Sheet Set Manager for Web. Right now, it has limited functionality, but they promised that it's going to be pretty much in parity with the classic one very soon. And so that will work, hopefully, as well as the other one. Your computer itself needs a little bit of setup, some software and licensing requirements. Yes, if you're your Civil 3D user, install it. If you're an AutoCAD user, well, install that. Desktop Connector, that one's free. You can get it from the Autodesk website. It's a service that runs on top of Windows, and essentially it manages files. So let's turn something on here, navigation pane. There's an Autodesk Docs, let's call it a folder under this PC. This is my account, and these are all the projects that I am associated with. And so when this essentially behaves like another drive, not really a drive, but just another location, you can open files just within Windows Explorer. You don't have to open files from the browser. You don't have to download any files. You just open them right from here. When you drag and drop files in here, Autodesk Desktop Connector interrogates your file and figures out, are there any XRefs or DRefs or any other kind of references, because it'll automatically copy those to Docs. Then you have to have a Docs license. And if you're going to use BIM Collaborate Pro, you have to have a license for that. Why do we need BIM Collaborate Pro? Because it has something called Collaboration for Civil. That enables full use of data shortcuts. If you're not using data shortcuts, if you're not requiring any of the other features from BIM Collaborate Pro, you don't need to install it. But most of us Civil 3D users use data shortcuts, and therefore pretty much we really need that BIM Collaborate Pro license. Now, we're going to try not to make this death by PowerPoint today, so I'm going to go through these a little bit quicker. There's a couple more to deal with, and then we'll get right into the demo. So project workflow. There's two halves to this screen. I'm just going to publish this out here. There's two halves to this screen, left and right. The stuff on the left, everybody does. Okay, you're going to design what it is you're designing, subdivision, parking lot, what have you. Create and edit your designs as usual. File locking. We sort of take that for granted with our Z drive. You open a file in AutoCAD, that file is locked for anybody else. Autodesk Docs, it's the same thing. You open up a drawing, that drawing's locked for anybody else. You're not going to have a situation where the same drawing is being edited by two different people, and whoever saves last wins. That doesn't happen with drawings. If you're working in Docs with Microsoft Word files or PDFs, well, file locking currently doesn't happen. So keep that in mind if you're working with non-DWG files. XREF and DREF as usual. As long as the files exist within the project, both of those features, there's no difference in the user experience. Versioning. On your Z drive, you save a file to the Z drive, and it's almost a certainty that you're not going to be able to go back 3 versions, the file you worked on last week. But with Autodesk Docs, you absolutely can. You can view the different versions, you can compare them, and you can take version 47 and then now make it the current version if you wish. And publish sheets, publish PDFs as you normally would. You take a bunch of drawings, publish to a PDF, save them to a folder on your Z drive. Well, it's the same thing in Autodesk Docs. You just have to decide what folder to save it to. And then markups. Let's say drafting creates a set of drawings, and engineer or designer is going to mark those up. Again, it's the same procedure, except there's a little bit of a difference. We can mark up a PDF in Autodesk Docs, or we can mark up the DWG directly. You see, Autodesk Docs has a browser viewer, an online viewer for lots of different file types, PDFs and DWGs included. So if there's a PDF inside Docs, click it, it opens right in your browser. If it's a DWG, it opens right in your browser. So some think, okay, well, this is great. Drafting doesn't have to go through the added step of creating a PDF necessarily, because an engineer can just open up a DWG. Let me just go to Docs here and I'll just show you real quick. All right. I think I have some drawings in here. Okay, there's a drawing. I'm just going to open it. Right inside Docs. It's the large model viewer. I can view it in 2D. I can view it in 3D. And this is me editing a drawing. Over here, not editing a drawing, but viewing a drawing. Over here is all my markup tools. So yeah, the engineer doesn't necessarily have to mark up a PDF. They can mark up a DWG directly. The problem is that DWG isn't the final product. There could be layers on that aren't supposed to be on. The line weights might not be set right. So a lot of my customers prefer still making a PDF first, but point is you don't necessarily have to. Now, the options on the right are really nice things that BIM Collaborate will allow us to do online, but you may not need to do these things for every project. So design and markups on the left, yes. Issues, review, model coordination on the right. I think people should start using them, but if you're just starting with ACC, Autodesk Construction Cloud, let's make it simple and do the stuff on the left. As you get more familiar with things, you can do the stuff on the right. Creating issues. Issue is kind of like a markup, except let's call it more serious. A markup could be something like the drafter spelled something wrong, or something doesn't look quite right. An issue could be a major edit required. The right-of-way is the wrong width, or the hydrant, is in the wrong position. Issues are assigned to a user. Markups is just simple markups. It's just, well, you know what markups are. You're drawing on top of a PDF. An issue, you're placing a marker on that PDF or DWG, but you're assigning that thing to a person. We're going to explore that a little bit more later. Often issues are external. So the sub-consultant, streetlight designer, perhaps, the streetlight's in the wrong place. So that would be an example of an issue. It's assigned to a person. It's somewhat serious. The review process, we're going to talk about that later as well. So markups are great. You open a PDF or whatever and start marking it up, but it's not documented in any way. It's not an official review process. So a project manager can create a review, assign a user to look at the PDFs and complete that review, and then assign, let's say, a drafter to make any required changes. Model coordination, finally, is where you can take your designs and all of the other sub-consultant models, put them in a single three-dimensional space, and compare them against one another. You're looking for clashes, maybe you're checking if your first floor lines up with your parking lot elevation, for example. Now, these guys, not necessarily model coordination, when you assign tasks, issues, reviews to a person, you get emails. Keep that in mind. If you're very active in a project, you will be getting lots of emails from the Autodesk Construction Cloud. Perhaps it's a nice idea to take your Outlook inbox or whatever inbox you use and maybe make a rule that says anything from Autodesk Construction Cloud just automatically goes into that folder, because your inbox is going to get full of these things in all likelihood. All right, what time is it? All right, we're good. Document sharing. Sometimes we need to share documents internally. For example, the survey team shares their work with the design team. If you use Vault, it's sort of like a project lifecycle. ACC doesn't have life cycles like Vault does, but you can sort of think of it in a similar way. When the survey team is finished, then they can make their topo survey and maybe existing ground surface available to the design team, right? Before they're ready, maybe that file isn't available to the design team. So we can make that happen inside ACC. When your team is ready, you can publish a package for consumption by other teams. Civil team and architectural teams share their models with each other. And the same thing is true. You don't have to share your work in progress model with them. You can decide when it is you're ready to share. And then again, you publish a package. That's called BIM collaboration. You can do it that way, or even you can just design folder permissions so that people don't have access to your folders until you're ready as well. Then external, right? You're sharing your designs or models with subconsultants, or you're sharing your published sheets, the actual construction documentation, with those same subconsultants or clients or contractors. If they are on Autodesk Docs and they are part of your ACC project, you just click share and you pick their names and it's easy. But what if they're not on Autodesk Docs? They're not going to be able to click your links and just go to that project because they're not logged in. They're not part of your official ACC project. You can enable public links and essentially treat an Autodesk Docs folder as an FTP. So if your recipients don't use ACC, it's not a big deal. You can turn on public links. Now that does have to be enabled. When you first create a project, public links are not enabled. So if you want to just make a link for someone to click and download, it has to be specifically enabled. Your recipients can, if they are part of a project, they can subscribe to a folder. So when something happens in that folder, a file changes or there's a new file or something, they get notified. What things are we going to share with external consultants? Well, project related templates or standards like drawing templates, specific specifications and guidelines. And then finally files, right? So there's something in Autodesk Docs ACC called Transmittals. Don't confuse that with eTransmit. Transmittals is you picking a bunch of files. If there are references, the transmittal process doesn't get those references. So it's best practice to, if you need to send files that have XRES and DRES, do an eTransmit on those first. You got a zip file. Then you can create a transmittal with ACC. Why would you want to do that instead of emailing them the link? Well, because it's tracked. A lot of these, like the review process, the transmittals, a lot of this stuff inside ACC is tracked. We know who sent what and when. So it's the tracking that's attractive. And that's sort of the preamble. So here we are with the demo. And I believe Mr. David Hill is first. So you want to share your screen?
Sure, Matt. Okay. Let's just get this set up. Civil 3D open here. Let's just close that.
While Dave's working there, what I'm just going to tell you what the basic outcome of this demo is going to be. Dave's the project manager, Prem is the engineer, and I am the designer drafter. What's going to happen is the design is at a state where we're ready for issue for tender, but we have to go through a review process, right? The project manager is going to start the review. Well, they're not going to start the review. They're going to create the review, selecting Prem. Prem's going to do the review. He's going to mark up PDFs. Me, the drafter, I can, fix my screw ups. Essentially, it goes back to Prem to double check, and then finally, once everything's done, it goes out for issue for tender. So that's the overview of what we're going to do.
All right, so let's get started. I'm just going to take control here and let's see if we can get the right screen. So hopefully everybody can see my screen okay. You got it, everyone? Matt? We're looking.
I can see it.
Okay, so here's my SolidCAD, in this case where you've done a subdivision. And this is the dock section that you can see up here in the upper left corner. Now, we have a folder structure developed already here for project files. These were created using the BIM Collaborate Pro. We're working in the cloud. So this is Civil 3D, file work in the cloud. So we're just, Civil 3D is working normally. It's just this is where the files are. So now we're going to be looking at just kind of opening this up a little bit just to give you a preview. So here's the engineering design team. So here is the list of all my design drawings and files. If I open up the model drawing folder, there's some drawings that we've been working with over the past just to create a whole collection of drawings that we would normally use in design. We also have listed a engineering review folder. So this would be the case where, as Matt was mentioning, he was maybe working in the corridor drawing or topo drawing, right? He's finished, he wants it reviewed. He wants Prem to look at it as the engineer on the job, or wants, I think I'm playing project manager today, right guys? So might be me looking at it. So we've put a folder in there called engineering review. And in there, we can click on it, and there is one of the PDFs that Matt created that he's going to use for checking, that we're going to use for checking. So this, again, could be done, as we say, in the cloud live here, or you can just push it up from network or local location. The other options you can see when I open this up, and again, this is end up going to be populating, right? You're going to get all your different reviews in here. You can see it shows a version value here as well. I'm just going to move this off the screen here. The update time is listed. I want to create a review to send to Prem. I want to, to have a look at this drawing. And even if I just click on this drawing, you'll notice that it opens, right? And here's a fairly large set of files for this project. To expand this, if I just click on it, you can see here's all the other drawings, and I can, work my way through it to see all the PDFs. So essentially, Matt's published this entire set. I'm just going to collapse this down. I'll go back to AO, I'll collapse it down. And, if I wanted to close it, again, just close it. The markup features Prem's going to get into very shortly. So if I want to contact Prem, I've got two options here. I can go up to reviews up here in this section here, and I can pick reviews. And it lists all the reviews that are up to or have been currently underway, and their status, and I can click create review. The other option I have is going back to that file section, right? Go back into my review folder. I can click on the PDF and go up to the three buttons. I hit the down arrow and I can see, create, submit for review. Same thing, right? It's Autodesk. You've got 6 ways to do everything, right? So when you click submit for review, I now have my review format up here. Now, in this case, I'm going to say, I want to send this to Prem. So we've got some approval reviews already created here. Now you can make as many of these as you want. But anyways, I'm going to say engineer review. Now, who's the name, right? So under this side, I can put in Prem. He should be there, but he's not popping up.
That's the name of the review.
Oh,
Prem's,
that's the name of the review. I'm sorry.
Prem's already part of the.
He's already
workflow.
there. Yep. So review name, Prem. You know, Prem for full. Let's call it something. 50% review, something crazy. You can see it's already showing me what it is, and as soon as I say submit, Prem is going to get notified that that's going to be sent, right? So that's going to be the situation there. So as soon as I say submit, it goes. So submit, there's the notify reviewers. This is the email notification. If I want to notify Matt that Prem is now reviewing it, I can do that. I can type in another message here if I want. And you can see here it says open. And I'm going to say due by Friday, because in our industry, everything's due by Friday. So I'll click send. Now I could cancel that, but I'm going to send it to him anyways. It could take 10 seconds for him to get the message. It could take 5 minutes. But again, he's being notified live that he's got something to go. So that could be one of the steps that you can use as a review. So Matt could send that or post those files to the engineering review folder or whatever you call your review folder, and then you can then go in and open them up. So I'll turn it over to you, Prem. You can go through some of the markup tools there for your review of Matt's project.
Thank you, Dave. And right on time, the email came in. Hopefully you can see my screen now.
Yep.
I can, yep.
All right. So one approach is to click on the link from the email. That will take you to the exact location, even at login. Okay, that's one approach. Another way is if you already logged in, then you could go over the browser and look under the reviews. Okay, so right now it's taking me right into that location. I could see that there is a PDF file. I could do, start review. And I'm curious what has happened in the drawing and what are the changes we went through. I may take some time to look into the different pages and go over some of the items. And just to give you an idea how easy to make some markups or any issues here, I am going to draw one small cloud here, putting a piece of text. And I'm just a little picky on the engineering side here. I'm curious about the line type. So I'm asking to check the line weights and line types. You could put notes, and you could have as many markups in this drawing, multiple sheets you could go over, and it will be listed all markups under the markups collection on the left. And you could review the markups before to publish them. In this case, I'm just going to have these 2 items. I'm going to just selecting every markups by Control A. If you want to publish it, I'll do the publish right from the interface here. Okay, then another item I wanted to go over is the issues. Like Matt mentioned earlier, issues are more, you need to to have some action associated with it, critical items going along. So I'm going to zoom into another area. Maybe here, I'm a little bit concerned about the intersection over here. I'm going to check or create an issue. I'm saying, let's take a good look at on this design area. I would like to have the designer and the team to take a look at it. So I'm going to go over and assign few guys, including the project manager. I'm going to add Dave Hill and Matt there. Okay. So once I have included the assignees and adding a comment, I'm concerned about the, city standards on that particular area. So check to ensure the latest city guidelines are applied. And I could now send this submit option. So that issue is being submitted and it will be available. And at this point, I'm going to go here under the item, and under the review status, I'm going to say rejected for time being. So until that issues get resolved, we are not going to move forward with this project. And once that status is checked, I could say submit the review. I'm going to put some notes there too. If you, it's optional, but you get the email triggered with those notes going into the attendees. Back to you, Matt.
Okay. Let's see. So at this point, what would have happened, because Prem clicked the submit button, project manager Dave, in this case, would have been notified that the review is complete. And because of the rejected status and because of the notes that Prem put in there, Dave knows that there's some changes that drafting need to make again. So what Dave could do is create another review, and I'm just going to do that real quick. Is, there's Prem's review that's just been finished. And so what Dave could do then is create another review, choosing the same files. I'm not going to finish this, but basically there's a review here for drafter to revise. That goes, in this case, to me, right? When the project manager creates this review, give it a name, drafting, let's say, call it, I don't know, fix drafting errors, etc. That's good enough. Drafting to revise, submit, and it sees it goes to me. I'm in here initially. You don't have to keep that person in here. If you know of another user that would be more appropriate, you can remove this one and add a different user. So when you create these review workflows, they're initially assigned to a person by default, but you can change it. And I might as well click send. So now me, the drafter, I would have got the same type of email that Prem got. Says, hey, Matt, you screwed up. You made some errors, maybe in your plans. They need to be addressed. So me as the drafter, I would have got the email. In this case, I'll just click open. Here it is. I see it. I'm going to start the review. Yep. So now I've got 3 days or 1 day or however many days are assigned to that review process. And I'm not going to show you AutoCAD because I don't really need to, but basically I will have the PDF on one page and AutoCAD in the other, addressing the markups that Prem made wherever they happen to be. I can go to markups here, and there's one there, and there's one there, and there's issues as well. So I can see all of them right here. Fix them on my CAD monitor, and when I'm done, I'm done. Now, one little caveat. I know that a lot of my customers use software like Bluebeam or Adobe to markup. You know, Autodesk has markup tools for PDFs and for DWGs. And the nice thing about using these tools is they are tracked. They're all part of your ACC project. Quite frankly, these tools are not as powerful as the Bluebeam and Adobe markup tools. So if you need to use Bluebeam and Adobe, no big deal. Okay. When a review is assigned to you, yeah, it's right here, and I can click on it and open it. But if it's not going to open it in Bluebeam or Adobe. So you just go to the appropriate folder inside your Autodesk docs, right? There's Autodesk docs. That's my account. That's my project. That's the folder. There's that PDF. It's not on my computer yet. I can see because the cloud that says it's in the cloud only. I can right click and sync, or I can double click it. It loads it to my machine. Then it opens it up in Bluebeam or Adobe, whatever software you need. Do your markups in there and save it. And the desktop connector, after you've saved it locally, after a few minutes, it will synchronize it back to the cloud again. So don't worry if you prefer to use your Bluebeam or Adobe markup workflow instead of using the markup tools in the browser, it's fine. You just edit this file as you normally would, save it as you normally would. It will just magically get synced to the cloud. And then you come here and say you're done your review. Now, what I'm going to do is I've got another file. See, if I look at this one, look at the first page, it's Sundance Resort. Now, I made a change to a PDF on my computer that changes the name just so you can see something different. So when I'm in AutoCAD, I click print or publish and I get a new PDF. And as long as I publish that PDF with the same name to the same location, all is good. See, what some of my customers think is a good idea is to append like V1 or V2 or V3. We don't need to do that thing anymore. Just overwrite the file that you need to overwrite, because we now have version control in ACC. So there's no need to change names of files just because you're uploading a new version. That's fairly important. So I have my file right here that has the name changed, and I'm just going to drag and drop it into the cloud. I could have dragged and dropped it in Windows Explorer as well. That would have been fine. But I wanted to do it this way so that you can see one particular thing that happens. So it's processing, not a big file. It's not going to take all that long. We got lots of time. I'm going to hit refresh on this browser. And once it's loaded properly, we now have version 2. So that's why, I mean, we don't want to start renaming these files just because it's a new version of this file. Just overwrite the old one. We're going to get a new version. One thing I'm going to go on a bit of a tangent here. 2 tangents, in fact. If you look in the chat window for the Zoom meeting, there is a link. I've typed it in. It says Autodesk has a new best practice help page for more information. There's a link there. That's a fairly new help page. So I suggest clicking it and taking a look. This is a best practice webinar after all. And that's a really good document that we just found today. The other thing I wanted to talk about, a new feature in AutoCAD. It's called Markup Import and Markup Assist. Okay, so if you have a PDF or a JPEG or a PNG or pretty much anything that has some markups in it, you can essentially attach it to your AutoCAD drawing, and the new Markup Import and Markup Assist tool can convert those markups to actual AutoCAD entities. Right, so here's the page that I found. It's an Autodesk AutoCAD blog that talks about this new tool. Right, this is just somebody scribbling on a piece of paper, and then that was scanned. I can bring that directly into AutoCAD, and as long as your typing or your writing is not too terrible, AutoCAD will actually import your handwritten notes as AutoCAD text or callouts or different things like that. So basically, engineer marks up a PDF, you bring it right into AutoCAD, and it overlays like right in paper space. And if the engineer actually wrote something in there, you can convert that really, really quickly to text. So just wanted to throw it out there since we're talking about the review process. This is a new tool inside AutoCAD that can be particularly helpful. Now, what about version control? So first, when I click this, remember it used to say Sundance Resort. Okay, now it says Whistler Resort. Great. How do I compare different versions? Well, I can just click on the version here, V2. It opens this guy up. I only have 2 versions. I'm going to click compare versions. Click them both. I can compare different versions to different versions. That's fine. There's only 2 right now. Now, stuff in red is unique to version 2. Stuff in blue is unique to version 1. And so that's the only thing that's changed. It's kind of hard to see right now, but I can turn different versions off. Or I can use this slider tool to pan around, and you can see right on the right is version 1, and I pan to the left, it's version 2. So that's comparison tools. You can compare DWGs this way as well, not just for PDFs. And so now I'm finished my review. I've uploaded my new PDF. I go to the reviews because my review is still open. Now, it's not approved or rejected because I'm not approving anything. I just say I'm completing this review. So my status is completed. I say submit review. Notify more members. That's just me. But if I wanted, Dave, the PM, or anybody else to know that my review is complete, I would put them in there. And so my review is done. Let's say Dave gets notified. And essentially, at this point, Prem, the engineer, would likely have to look over it again. And we could go through this a bunch of times, but for the sake of, we got 12 minutes left, Prem would normally have to review it again. And this time he's like, okay, looks good, approved. Dave gets notified. And then what does Dave do with it? So sorry, Prem, for skipping over you there, but we only have 10 minutes left. So I figured we should probably be careful of time. And so let's assume that Prem's done the review and it's approved and Dave gets notified.
So here I've just got my screen up. I think everybody can see it okay. So you can also kind of take a look here. It's consistent, right? I'm looking at it here too. It says version 2, right? It's already done. So if I wanted to open it, same thing. Click on it, take a look, version 2, Matt said it's done. Well, do I believe you, Matt? Well, what does a project manager do? He checks, right? So I look at it, say, yep, everything looks okay. I close it out, right? And then I decide, well, maybe I want to get things moving, right? And as Matt said, the next step may be for me to zip everything up, or if someone's already put the files together in an e-transmit format, I can go to the Transmittal section up here, right? So we've got Transmittals. I can just click on Transmittals, right? Shows me the list. I can say create transmittal. And then what do I want? Well, I tell it what files I want. So project files, engineering review, click on the file or the folder for that matter, and say create. And when I say create, it gives it the title. I can list the recipients of who I'm going to send it to, right? So anybody I want to send it to, we'll just put, Matt in there as a and look at the permissions, right? There's the details of it. There's my transmittal, right? Now, if I go to say create, it's going to create that transmittal, and there it is. Now, in the transmittal side of things, as Matt mentioned, he's already in there, right? He's on the team, so he gets that. If you need to, send something to, someone else, that's could be done through the FTP, fix, right? That's on the team, so he's on the team. I can get it. If you wanted to send it via, another format, meaning, linked by just an email, where someone gets the link and they can download the file, you can do it that way. And what's going to happen is whatever you send them here, they're going to get. Now, it doesn't do references and data shortcuts and anything like that. So that's why we have to sometimes go outside and bring it in with an e-transmit. But once you've got it here, it's all recorded, right? That's the key to this. The transmittal is a record of what's been going on. So there's the list, and it's been sent, and we're all waiting for that review by whoever we sent it to, or maybe it's a contractor, maybe it's an approving agency. So really, that's kind of the steps to go through it, kind of from start to finish. If you wanted to start it, mark it, start the project, create your PDFs, mark them up the way we always do, back and forth between team members, and then at the end of the day, everything's completed to the satisfaction of the team. You make a transmittal and send those drawings to whoever you need to get the next part of the project going. So really, kind of, that's the step-by-step of going through it. Now, see, we've got about 7 or 8 minutes left. We'll go back to the PowerPoint, Matt, unless you or Prem have something else you want to add.
No, I'm good. The only PowerPoint. The only other thing I would suggest, we've got a submissions folder here. You can create as many folders as you need. Issue for tender, issue for construction. This PDF inside this folder is intended to be an internal thing. And so we go back and forth with the review process until we're satisfied with that. And then we say, okay, this is the right version that we want to share. We want to issue this for tender, let's say. I can then move or copy that file, which is in the work in progress folder, to, let's say, issue for tender. And so once it goes to the issue for tender folder, see, it's version 2 here, but because it's now been copied to issue for tender, it's not quite finished yet. It's going to be version 1 inside that issue for tender. And then, then you can share this file, just so I can show people when I click share. Anyone with link, that's if they are not part of your project. You will create your standard, FTP style link using that. It does have to be enabled for the project, though. Now, I'm not sure if you want to speak to any of these remaining slides, Dave.
Yeah, sure. So looking at kind of an overview, creating Civil 3D either on your local server or locally on your system, or working on the ACC cloud with BIM Collaborate Pro, which is what we've kind of shown here. You're pushing those files, whether they're DWGs or PDFs, you're pushing those up into the docs, and then you can work back and forth with your team members to do those markups. You can do the transmittals. You can share the files, as Matt just showed. We can create issues if there's some significant issues that you want to do. So you're working back and forth with your internal team members, and if there's external folks that you want to include, perhaps you're building a composite utility plan for a project, or maybe you're working on capital works and there's an outside agency or an outside consultant doing the electrical works. You may want to obviously communicate and collaborate with them on any conflicts that may happen with respect to where the vault locations are, you know, maybe it's in the way of your a revised driveway location or the poles. So all of this can be back and forth really quite easily, and that's kind of the communication and coordination part of it, right? So you've got the three C's there, right? That's kind of internal collaboration, even with on a regular basis, and you might have external firms or people involved. You're communicating internally, and you're coordinating again internally and outside. The beauty of this system is you're all doing it within the Autodesk environment, but if you need to go outside of it to do some of those markups, Bluebeam is a very powerful tool for markups and editing. If you're working with that, fairly straightforward. As Matt showed, you can just copy that, drag and drop it, or copy it right in your Windows Explorer, or pull it into ACC, and it's going to update even the versions. The beauty of the version control too is that even if you have identical numbers or drawing names, it's still going to recognize it as a different version, right? So you don't have V1, V2, V3 as a DWG file, which is historically something that we've done. So the options there are almost limitless as to how you want to work with the files, either internally on your server or pushing it right to the cloud. Obviously, the cloud has some advantages when it comes to remote access, as Prem was indicating. Performance is solid. Working with the VPNs, again, they work, but if you've got large file sizes or data shortcuts that maybe all in one folder for multiple projects, things can have performance hits. So by all means, right, take a look at or consider looking at the Collaboration Pro working from the cloud setup, which would alleviate some of the remote work that we're performance things that we're running into from time to time. Not everybody has them. Again, depends on internet speed, bandwidth, server speed, VPN type, all kinds of things can impact it. But that's kind of what we wanted to show today, give you a bit of an overview of once it's in the cloud, how you can collaborate back and forth and share things back and forth. There was a few questions in the chat, which is good. So I think we've answered those. Did you see any more? No, I think that last one that Matt mentioned about the best practices is the last one. And if there's any other questions, please feel free to reach out to any of the tech team that we have across Canada. And we're very happy to take you through the solutions that we have with respect to the remote work for Civil 3D and other Autodesk products. So and over to you guys. Anything else before we sign off?
Not for me, Dave. Thank you.
Yeah, it's all good. We'll give one more minute for anybody. If you have any questions, feel free to type it in.
Yeah.
This recording will be available, so feel free to download it and share it with your friends and family.
I'm sure they'd love to watch.
Yeah.
While we're waiting the last couple minutes before the top of the hour, I don't know if you guys remember a couple of years ago when Collaboration for Civil was first presented to us in the spring, I guess. No, in the fall, I would imagine that was 2020. The Autodesk guys put on a webinar. Okay, Civil 3D is now compatible with Autodesk docs and DREFs and stuff like that. And it's about a 1 hour webinar. And Prem, I think you counted how many times they said the words "be patient." Remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was 26 times.
26 times they said "be patient" in 1 hour. It was really slow back then. Now, sure, it's maybe not as fast as your Z drive, but it's pretty snappy in my opinion. Yours? What do you think, guys?
It is really, really well working on my side, and I could say that its product is ready for at this moment.
I think so. I had one customer who is on the call today. I saw his name in there, who will remain nameless. I was over at their office a few weeks ago, and they had one file. It was a pretty big drawing, maybe 100 megs, not the biggest drawing I've seen. And they were having difficulty uploading it. Well, it was easy to click the upload button, but it would just spin and spin and spin. It never actually finished. And I was able to upload that same file from my machine to the same project, but when they started uploading it to the same project from their machines, it did some weird stuff. And then I think we're probably going to figure that out with Autodesk. I'm not sure what the deal is there, but seems maybe like an internal setting. But anyway, for the most part, yeah, I think it's pretty snappy. So we are at 1 minute past. So thanks everybody for attending. Hope you learned a lot. Watch the video on YouTube when it becomes available. And on behalf of Dave, Prem, and the rest of the SolidCAD group, my name is Matt. Have a good day. I will see you later.
Thank you all.
Thank you.